Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have everyone here. This is Soledad Tanner, Texas Executive Board Member and Programs Committee Co-Chair. We're really excited that we have right now 26 people in this call, and we are all going to learn about women health matter. It does. We need to take care of ourselves, and we're going to learn some tricks today and some new pieces of information and an amazing story of how we can be here for the long run and as healthy as we can. Do you know that heart disease takes the life of 1 of 3 women? And that research shows that 80% of the cardiovascular diseases is preventable. We can do something to be here longer and healthier. And even small changes in our eating habits or in our lifestyles, or maybe exercise, we will know what, can help us improve that heart health. And we can learn how to treat, manage, and control these risk factors. So I'm really, really excited that we all are going to get to learn today how to do that better, how to take care of us better, and do something that is very important to us, our health. So with that, I want to thank American Heart Association. We have Larissa, Emily, and Veronica in the call, and I will get to introduce all of us. But prior to that, I would like to introduce you to Bridget Robertson. She is the president of the board of directors of Texas Executive Women, and she will also like to welcome all of you.
Thank you so much, Soledad. And I am Dr. Bridget Robertson. I am honored to be here today with each of you and welcome you to the Texas Executive Women. A woman's health matters. You know, I can't think of a more important subject matter for us to be going over, because if we don't have health, we don't have anything. And so the most important thing is for us to be healthy and to be reminded of those things that help us to continue to stay healthy. And so that we can be our best selves. You know, we do so many things. We're superwoman a lot of days, taking care of the husband, the children, the job, and all those other things. And sometimes we forget about ourselves. And so it's very important that we are reminded of those things to help us. Even the smallest changes can help us be a better us, so that we can be better for those around us and those that we take care of. Because without us, a lot of times, they can't make it without us women. So I think it's a very important topic that Soledad and Cynthia have come up with for us today, and to partner with the American Heart Association. How awesome is that we get to partner with them and learn more about our heart health. I want to tell you about Texas Executive Women for those who are members, and I've invited some, and I know that some of the other board members have also invited some great women. There are some phenomenal women on this Zoom, and it just makes my heart full to see all of this greatness here on the Zoom this morning. And so if you were invited and we haven't given you the opportunity to write in the chat so that we can know who you are and your organization. That would be great for us to know. And just a little bit about Texas Executive Women. We are an organization that is nonpartisan, and we promote other executive women and young girls in our community so that they can be their best selves. We want to grow them and give out scholarships to them. We do community events for them to help them become better and know these opportunities that are available to them. And so this is a great organization. If you're not involved in an organization and you'd like to get involved with the community, please do think about Texas Executive Women. And so I just wanted to share that little bit about us. Our mission is to support programs that recognize and develop and fund the advancement of women and teenage girls. That's what we're about. So we give out those scholarships, and one of the ones we give out is called the Jackie Greer Scholarship. So we give those out every year to help young girls with their college dreams of becoming who they want to become. And so it's always important that we touch the lives of others and show that impact in the community. And that's what Texas Executive Women does. We also support executive women with our Women on the Move luncheon, and we'll be doing that in September. And so we invite you back to come and join us for that great event. So at this time, enough about Texas Executive Women. I'm going to turn it back over to Soledad, our program chair. She is phenomenal. She is another phenomenal executive woman in Texas Executive Women. So back to you, Soledad. Thank you so much. And welcome everyone. Welcome to our event today.
Thank you, Bridget. And yeah, welcome. I see more people join us. So wonderful. I appreciate you taking your time and to learn about you. And also I'm going to now introduce you, Kathy Moore. She's our VP of Memberships and also a board member. And she has a great message for all of you. Kathy?
Good morning, everybody. It is so wonderful to see all of you members. If you're a member, could you do me a favor and could you put a thumbs up so we can see that you are a member? I'm hoping to take a look. I know Nana Baker, put your thumb up. You are the newest member of TEW.
Yes, I'm trying to
Okay,
see
great. So we have several of you are here today and are not members, and we would love to see you become part of TEW. The application process is very simple. You go to our website and where it says join TEW on the front page, and you fill out an application. It'll come to me and I'll reach out to you. And then you are presented to the board for approval, and you're presented your resume and all. But what are the benefits of being part of TEW? That's really the bottom line here. And let me tell you the benefits. The benefits are programs that focus on things like health, networking with other women. It's a healthy thing to do. So being a part of a group is a really good thing. Having your people that you can go to that can help you in business, that can help you personally, that can give you advice. We want to surround you, and we want you to surround us also. What other benefits are there? There's a wine event in August, and I'm thinking that's going to be a really good one. At Christmas, we all get together and we visit with each other and we share stories and we get advice and we mentor each other. And it's just a really great thing to have other women to surround us. Our needs in the workplace are different than men's. How we operate, things that happen to us, every one of us experiences a different thing, but all of us experience similar things, and we can share with each other to help each other along the journey. And so we really want you to be a part of TEW. Carrie put into the chat, I saw October 28th is Women on the Move. If you've never been to a Women on the Move luncheon, you want to come. It's a really great event celebrating women who are doing amazing things in our community. So TEW has a lot to offer. I cannot tell you personally, as I have been a member of TEW, I'm going on longer than Soledad wanted me to. But I have had the opportunity to meet amazing women. I never would have. I would never have had access to Soledad or Paula. I wouldn't have gotten to know Carrie Potter so well, and so many others that are members of TEW that are amazing in our community. So join us, even if it's just for 1 year. Come find out what TEW is all about. Get to know the women. And if you are a member who hasn't paid your dues in a while, we'd love to see you rejoin and join us again. And I may or may not reach out to you in the next little bit. So thank you so much to all of you who are members. And thank you to those who are considering joining. Thank you to our newest member, Nana Baker, for coming for this program. She just got to be a member effective Monday or Tuesday by the time the voting was done. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I really hope you all join within the next 24 hours.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. And we are perfectly on time. I love that. It's 8:45, 8:46. And now I'm so happy I get to introduce this phenomenal woman. We have the American Heart Association executive team here. And we have not only Larissa Jacobs, VP of Health Strategies, Emily Gordon, Community Impact Director, who worked so hard to put this event together. We have Stephanie also on the call, and we have Veronica Sanchez. Edwards, the SVP of couldn't join us, but but we have the rest of the group. So I'm going to start with Larissa. Larissa is the Vice President of Health Strategies at the American Heart Association in Houston, Texas. She leads local strategies to maximize equitable health and well-being in Houston and has spent the past 2 decades advocating for healthy communities. Prior to joining the American Heart Association, she pioneered and led a large portfolio of evidence-based health interventions for chronic disease prevention with hospitals and centers for Medicare and Medicaid services. Thank you, Larissa, for joining us. And before we give the floor to Larissa, I want to thank Emily. Emily, you rock. Emily is the Community Impact Director, and she helped us putting all of this together. Just, you know, we were going to be in person first, and then we move into virtual, following instructions of the CDC. But we're still getting the best of this knowledge. So Emily is a public health professional who has served the greater Houston area for the last 5 years. She earned her master's in public health, MPH, focused in epidemiology practice, and has used this skill to help analyze local data to understand communities' needs and trends. She's passionate about finding connections between clinical and community partners, especially as it relates to women's health education. Welcome, both of you. Larissa, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Soledad. I really appreciate the partnership, the fellowship, and just being able to share what we know about heart health today. And I will echo what you said. Mel is a little sad not to be here, but she was under the weather. So she, you know, faithfully turned the reins over to us, the team. So I'm going to introduce Veronica Sanchez. She is our Senior Director of Healthcare Systems and Community Impact. She is both a heart survivor and someone who has put her heart and soul into her work every single day. I think the whole team would agree with me on that. She shows up 200% in everything she does. She has experience in working in both the corporate sector and community health space. So it's an unusual and exciting combination of talents and skills that she's able to understand that corporate perspective, having been a vice president in banking, but to also understand what communities need. And so it's been a real joy to watch some of the magic of what she does here at AHA. She's a longtime supporter of community and veteran health, and she's dedicated to spreading awareness of heart health for longer, healthier lives across Greater Houston and Gulf Coast. She has been with the American Heart Association for more than 7 years. That alone deserves big applause. She's been changing lives and communities for increased access to healthy foods and clinical excellence. And right before I turn it over, I will say she is leading in the nation in her work with clinical partners, having signed up formalized partnerships with 233 clinical sites across Greater Houston in a territory that's the size of the state of New Jersey. So hats off to Veronica, and I think I'm handing off.
Thank you so much, Larissa. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Let me see. Can you guys see the screen? Okay, and can you still see me, or you can't see me at all? You can see me as well. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. I just really wanted to share a little bit about my heart story. Soledad said that for those that joined a little early, that she heard me speak at a Vestida Rojo event, which is an event that I put together here in the Greater Houston area. And Larissa also alluded that I had some corporate banking experience. So I'm going to kind of set the stage of where I was when this heart event happened to me. This happened about 11 years ago. At that time, I was working for JPMorgan Chase. I was a corporate banker, and I was in the franchise finance division. I was executive director there, and you know, my biggest client was McDonald's. McDonald's is everywhere. And so it just so happened that I was on a team and I covered them in a different region of the country that did not include Houston. So what did that mean? That meant that I was on a plane Monday through Friday every week that I was there. And I was at JP Morgan for 15 years doing that job. And so, and if I liked the destination, guess what? I would stay for the weekend and invite my husband to come over for the weekend, and then we'd fly back. Or I'd go to my next destination, wherever that was. And so I was covering the New England area, all the Ohio Valley, around the Great Lakes, Chicago, obviously where McDonald's is headquartered, the Iowa Midwest region, and in Puerto Rico. So guess where I would always go? I'd always go to Puerto Rico. I always wanted to visit the offices there and visit with the franchise. I was the banker for the franchisees and the franchisor. So always on the move, just working like crazy, just doing a lot of work. But also in that year, my daughter and my 2 daughter-in-laws all decided to get pregnant at the same time. So I had to plan 3 baby showers, making sure that we had everything ready. And as it turned out, 2 of them, my daughter and one of my daughter-in-laws, they gave birth 5 days apart. So I was running from one hospital, going to another hospital, making sure that the first baby that was born, that they had everything they needed. And they all happened to live in Houston at that time. They don't live here anymore, but at that time they all did. So it was all this work, trying to schedule stuff in with my family. And it was just very, very, very chaotic. And any of you that are in banking know that just being in the banking world is very stressful. You're only as good as your last deal. Doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you close. It's all about what's next, what's next, what's next. And so, you kind of live with that. And so it's just one of those things where I guess stress just kind of builds up, but you don't really realize it because it's so slow. And I had been going to the doctor and, everything, my exams had always been normal. So I just really never questioned anything that my doctor told me. But one day I had a client that wasn't doing so great at the bank. And so we had a meeting internally and they told me that I had to walk a client out. And what that means is that we no longer want your business. And I have to talk to you to say that we no longer want your business, but then also help you to transition to another bank. Well, as you can imagine, it's not just one bank account, it's multiple bank accounts, it's a treasury relationship, it's a credit relationship, it's lots of different things that need to happen. And I had never in my 15 years at JP Morgan, I had never had to walk a client out ever in my life. I had heard stories about it. And what I had heard was that anybody that had to walk a client out, as soon as you walked them out, you were walking out the door with them. And so that was what was in my head as they were talking to me, and I could feel my heart pounding because I was getting nervous. I'm like, okay, how am I gonna, because it's not something that you would share on the phone. I had to fly over there to tell them. And so I was thinking about how I was gonna be able to do that. And the more I thought about it, my heart started just beating a little faster and a little faster, a little faster. Then I started sweating. I'm like, okay, walked over to my desk in my office. And all of a sudden I felt like I had this extreme nausea and dizziness, but nothing like I had ever felt before. It was just so extreme. And I said, this is weird, and I'm trying to think, okay, must have been something I ate for lunch. It's just not agreeing with me. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Through a couple of minutes, it started to get worse and worse. It got so bad to the point to where I had to lay down on the floor of my office because I felt that if I didn't lay down, I was going to fall. And it felt like, for any of you who have ever had vertigo, it felt like vertigo times 10. It was horrible. It was so bad. It was so bad that I had to call my husband and say, hey, you're going to have to pick me up. I'm going to have to take the parking ride, and you're going to have to pick me up from the parking ride because I cannot drive home. I feel horrible. And I'm not a hypochondriac. So he knew, okay, well, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I just feel really dizzy. And I just super nauseated. He said, well, what'd you eat? I said, I didn't eat anything out of the normal, but whatever it is, I don't know what it is. I just know I can't drive. And so I just packed up my stuff and I started to walk out. I had never walked out in my life, for any job, just walk out. I made eye contact with my boss as I was walking out. He was on the phone. I was going to tell him that I was leaving, but he was on the phone. And I just felt like if I didn't leave, I was going to pass out. So I just walked out. We made eye contact and I left. That was the last time he saw me. Get on the parking ride, still feeling miserable, but oddly enough, by the time I got to my destination, you know, where my husband was waiting for me, I felt better. Like, oh, it went away. Okay. So I went home, cooked dinner, ate dinner, watched a little TV, went to bed. Thought, okay, whatever it was, it went away. And I still was thinking about how I was going, I had to make my flight arrangements. I had to go fly over to talk to this client, trying to figure it out in my head how I was going to break this news to them. And at about 4 a.m, I woke up with the sensation to go to the bathroom. And when I opened my eyes and I tried to get out of bed, I realized that I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. And I'm like, this is weird. And I felt as if something was like pressing down on my chest. And so the first thing that came to my mind was, do I have my husband's leg laying across me or something? Because it was so heavy. And I looked down and there's nothing there. And I kept trying to lift my head off the pillow and I couldn't even do that. I said, this is so weird. I've never felt this before. I just felt like I felt like somebody was sitting on top of me. That's what it felt like. And I really had to go to the bathroom. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up rolling out of bed and I fell to the floor and I kind of crawled to the bathroom, went to the bathroom. I felt a little better. I said, you know what? I'm just going to go sit on the couch, go to the living room, watch a little TV to see if this goes away. And it was really strange. But every 5 minutes, I had a full bladder and I had to go to the bathroom. I said, that's really strange because I didn't drink that much water before. You know, I didn't drink too much before I went to bed and I didn't drink anything during the night. So why am I going to the bathroom so much? And it was just like every 5 minutes, a full bladder, full bladder. You know, as I stated, what I didn't know then, what I don't know now is that I was dying. And see, what happens is this. When a person starts to die, the brain doesn't want to die. And so the brain tells the body, what can I do to relieve whatever I need to survive? And so it tells, and it knows that the heart is in distress and the brain knows that it needs the heart. So it starts to release whatever it has. And so for me, it was liquid. It was bodily fluids. So everything started to come out, everything. And it wasn't until later that I learned that that's one of the stages when someone is dying, is that your body will release all its fluids. And so I just kept going to the bathroom and I kept getting weaker. And then all of a sudden I felt my left arm getting heavy. I'm like, this is weird. You know, why would it get heavy? And finally got to the point to where I felt like I had to carry my arm, because if I didn't, and I know it sounds crazy, I felt as if I didn't carry my arm, that it was gonna fall off. So at this time I go and I wake up my husband and he sees me like crumped over and I'm holding my arm. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, I just feel like something's heavy on my chest. And he goes, why are you cradling your arm? I said, because I feel like if I don't carry it, it's gonna fall off. Well, my husband's ex-military. He knew exactly what was going on, but he didn't want to scare me. So he said, you know what? I think maybe we should go to the hospital and go to the ER and get that checked out. I'm like, oh, no. I can't go to the hospital right now. I said, I have all my appointments. I know I have to book that flight. I said, as a matter of fact, later today, I have an appointment with my primary care doctor for my annual physical. So I'll see him then. I'll see somebody, but I'll see him later in the day. He kept saying, no, I really think we should go. And I'm very stubborn. I'm a stubborn Latina. So he's like, no, I really think we should go. And we argued for a little bit, but he finally convinced me. And we ended up going to the hospital. Well, by the time we reached the hospital, I could barely breathe, could barely walk. They almost had to carry me into the hospital, to the emergency room. And as soon as they saw me, they took me to the back. And I'm like, wait a minute, don't you want to see my medical card? And they're like, no, we'll get that later. They took me to the back. So they're triaging me, and the gentleman that took me in, you know, he said, what's going on? And I said, well, I feel like there's something heavy on my chest and my arm feels really heavy, so I'm having to carry it. And then he said, ma'am, you're having a heart attack. And I said, oh, no, this isn't a heart attack. This is just a little pressure on my chest and my arm feels a little heavy. And then he said it again. He says, ma'am, you're having a heart attack. And I said, no, you don't understand. This is not a heart attack. And because in my mind, what a heart attack is what I see on TV, right? It's an older gentleman, you know, that he clutches his chest because he's got this pain, and then he passes out. Well, I didn't have pain. I had pressure and not pain. And so, he said, no, this is a heart attack. You are actually, because I'm not asking you, I am telling you, you are having a heart attack right now. And I kind of passed out because it was like too much information all at one time. And so let me see if I can flip the screen. So this is what I look like after having 2 heart attacks. So remember I said that I felt nauseated and dizzy at work? That was the first heart attack. The second heart attack happened precisely 12 hours later at home when I woke up, with the sensation to go to the bathroom. Had I not woken up, had my brain not alerted me to wake up to go to the bathroom, when my husband woke up, he would have found me dead in the bed because the heart attack would have progressed. No, I would not have received aid. And by the time he woke up, he would have a dead wife next to him. And so I want to share with you, what are the different symptoms of a heart attack for men and women? Because it's so important, because again, I had no idea that they were even different. I thought that they were the same. So remember I talked about that extreme nausea and dizziness? That's one of the symptoms. It's nausea or vomiting. It could be jaw or neck pain or upper pain in the upper back. It could be pain in the chest, but not always. But it's pain that sometimes or pressure that radiates. So it can go from the back to the front or from the front to the back. You have shortness of breath. You could faint. You could have indigestion. That was my nausea. You could have extreme fatigue. So it's so many different symptoms. A lot of people say, well, these are very common symptoms. How do women can't be running to the hospital all the time. No, you can't. But these are going to be symptoms that are going to be extreme. Again, remember when I said, I felt these symptoms before, but they were very extreme. So I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew that something was wrong. And so, now I make sure that women know what is the difference between the symptoms between a man and a woman. So they admitted me to the hospital and ended up having to have 2 heart surgeries. In the first heart surgery, I actually woke up in the middle of the surgery, and the doctor freaked out when I started talking to him. And what I could see was I couldn't see what they were doing. I remember seeing like a white clock, and I could see over, and I could see the doctors like looking down, and they were working, and they had like these, I don't know, like these huge microscopes that they were looking down on. And so I started talking to my doctor, and he's like, "You're awake?" And he never turned to look at me. He goes, "Are you awake?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you in any pain?" And I said, "No, I'm not in any pain. Actually, I felt so calm and serene." He said, "I need you to stay very still because I'm working on your heart." So when he said that, I looked to the left and I could see these big screens, and I could see I could see that they were doing something. I didn't understand what they were doing, but I could see something going on. And I said, "Okay." And then he asked for the anesthesiologist to knock me out again. And I said, "No, I want to stay awake. I want to see what you're doing." And he said, "No, I would rather you go back to sleep." He goes, "Anyway, you're not going to remember anything." I said, "No, you're doing something, and I'll remember." And so he let me stay awake, and I got to see what they were doing on the screen. And then when it was all over, he walked over and he said, "Okay, we're done for now." And I said, "But I do need to talk to you." He goes, "But I'm going to wait until you're a little bit more awake." I said, "Oh no, I am wide awake. I know exactly. Whatever you tell me right now, I will remember it forever." And he said, "Okay." And then when I was looking at the screen, everything looked good. Everything looked like everything was working and functioning properly. So I'm like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with me, right? Like everything's okay," because I was getting ready to go to Las Vegas on vacation. And, before I had to go on that trip to talk to that client. And so he said, "No, actually things are not good." And he said, "I'm going to walk over to the screen to show you, and you tell me what you see." So what I could see was I could see my blood vessels, and I saw things moving inside of them. So in my brain, that was my blood. I said, "Everything looks like it's moving well. I don't see anything wrong going on that's wrong." And he said, "Okay, so he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, okay, well, let's look at this." And so, he took one blood vessel. He goes, "You see how everything's moving? And then it gets here, and then it kind of gets jumbled up." He goes, "Look, you see this other one, and it gets jumbled up." He goes, "All these jumbles are blood clots." He goes, and as you can see, some of them and some of these, you can see where the blood continues on the other side, but it's not going as fast. And then others, you see where the blood's not moving anywhere at all. So long story short, I had 3 arteries that were 98 to 99% blocked. I had some other ones that were in the 60 to 70% range. And he said, you know, when they went in, that they noticed that there was a lot of damage to the heart. And so he said, you know, you actually had 2 heart attacks. And that's when I learned that I had 2. He goes, you actually had 2 heart attacks. He goes, why didn't you go to the hospital after the first one? I said, well, first of all, I didn't even realize I was having a heart attack. So why would I go to the hospital? And he said, explain to me exactly, what did you feel? I said, in the first one, I just felt, I said, well, in the day, I didn't tell the first one. I said, what I felt was just extreme nausea and dizziness, like to the point where I had to lay down on the floor of my office. He said, that was heart attack number 1. And I said, and then when I came to the hospital, it was because I felt like something was heavy on my chest. He said, that was heart attack number 2. He said, but guess what? In between the time of heart attack number 1 and heart attack number 2, you ended up killing 30% of your heart muscle. That will never come back. He goes, and you know what I just did? He goes, I didn't even fix your heart. The only thing I did was give you a heart pump so that your heart can rest for the next 72 hours so that I can go back in and do the big surgery, the bigger one that you really need. He goes, but if I do it right now, you'll flatline on in the operating room. That was so scary for him to say that to me. And I knew that I was tired, and I knew that I was stressed. And I thought, this is it. You know, I had a son in the Air Force that was stationed somewhere else. I asked my husband to call him. I said, don't tell him what's wrong. Just tell him I need to see him. Just tell him I need to see him. I had just had these 3 babies that were born. And what was going through my mind said, I'm not even going to get to see them. I'm not going to get to see them grow up. I'm not going to survive this surgery. So, but the next 3 days, instead of resting, I wanted to see everyone. I had my attorney come in. I drew up a new will. I made sure I had all my beneficiaries updated because I really thought I was going to die. And so I made peace with everyone. And, you know, ended up going into that second surgery. Before I went in, I remember praying and asking, I said, you know, I prayed to God and I said, I want more time. So I need more time. I have these 3 babies that I'm not even going to get to know. And there's so much more I know that I can do. And as I was sitting there in the hospital for those 3 days, I started thinking, if I'm scared and I'm an educated woman, can you imagine if I was here from another country and I didn't speak the language, if I didn't understand what they were saying to me, if I couldn't comprehend the terminology that they were telling me of everything that was going to happen to me, and I didn't speak the language, or if I wasn't educated, how much more scared I would be. You know, from my home country, we don't even trust the medical system. And so I said, you know what, I've got to do something. So I asked for more time. I said, and I promise that if you give me more time, I will make good use of it. This is my family. This is what I was fighting for. This is who I wanted to live for. You know, here you see my husband, Jose. You see my 4 kids. I have 4 kids, all of which served in the military except the oldest. He's an engineer. Then you see the grandkids. And then I had just had, you know, the three little ones. And so this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to live, and I asked for more time. So this is me 1 week after open heart surgery. You know, I got my time. You know, and it was a long way back to going back to work. I ended up having to do 4 months of cardiac rehab because I had killed so much heart muscle. I had to learn to do things again. I couldn't even brush my hair. I couldn't even give myself a bath. I couldn't even clean myself when I went to the bathroom. I needed help for everything. And so it took a long time, you know, and going into cardiac rehab. But guess what? After 4 long months, I graduated and I was let go from the hospital. And I got to go back to work on January of 2012. So that's me on graduation day. And, you know, I'm on the road to recovery. And, you know, just because I had heart surgery doesn't mean that it's over. This is ongoing. I have to keep up with my numbers. I have to ask my doctor, what is my blood pressure? What is my cholesterol numbers? What is my blood glucose numbers? You know, where am I with everything? And I have to get tested for my heart every year. And what they're looking for is to make sure that the damage isn't growing. Because the more it grows, the less I'll be able to do going forward. And so I always go every year to make sure that I am a survivor. I survived it. So one of the first things that I was able to do after I got out of the hospital was to go to the grocery store. And walking very slow with a walker, you know, just wanting to get back to something normal. I remember I bent over to grab something, and the lady that worked at the grocery store, she said, "Oh, hi." He goes, "You're in the Zipper Club." And I said, "What?" She goes, "You're in the Zipper Club." I said, "What's the Zipper Club?" She said, "I see you had open heart surgery." And at that point I was mortified. I didn't want anyone to know what had happened to me. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to tell anyone. I mean, obviously my boss knew, my team knew at the bank, but other than that, I just really didn't want anybody to know. So I couldn't figure out how this woman at the grocery store even knew that I had heart surgery. And she said, "It's your zipper." I'm like, "What zipper are you talking about?" And then what she was referring to is this. This is my zipper. This is the cut from the heart surgery. And she said, "I have one too." And she showed me hers. And I started crying. And she said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because I'm so embarrassed that this even happened to me, you know?" And she said, "No, don't." She goes, "Don't be embarrassed." She goes, you should be shouting it at the top of your lungs that you're still here. Because you know how many women can't show a zipper, that they're 6 feet underground? And I said, "No." She's like, "Well, there's a lot of women that don't survive it." This was an older lady. And she said, "So you should be very, you should be very thankful that you survived it. And two, you should tell everyone, so that you never know who you're going to inspire. You never know who's the person that you'll get them maybe to go get checked and go get their annual physical." And so that's when I went to the American Heart Association to learn more about, what could I do as a volunteer to spread awareness about heart disease in women, and specifically multicultural women, to Latinas, because I had never seen any information in Spanish about it. So I said, what are we doing? And then that's how I became a volunteer for the American Heart Association. And I started to advocate on behalf of women. And within a couple of years, I was a national spokeswoman for the American Heart Association under the Good Work for Women campaign, and went around the country really sharing my story, still as a banker. By that time, I had left Chase and I had gone to Iberia Bank, where I was a VP of community banking. And I thought by going to a smaller bank, things would be quieter. I wouldn't have to travel as much, but it was actually more work because I didn't have the team that I had to support me that I had at JP Morgan. A position became available at the American Heart Association, and so I applied. And that's how I came to be at the American Heart Association. And Larissa said that I'm very passionate about what I do. I am very passionate because I lived it. I'm here. And I want to make sure that no more women are taken from us too early, and that, we all learn what we can do to protect ourselves and protect our health. And so I started on my journey to fitness. I started walking, and this was after completing my very first heart walk. I was so excited that I was able to finish it, especially after having to be in the hospital for 4 months to do cardiac rehab. I was just ecstatic that I could even finish it. And so I was so happy. I took these pictures, and I'm still on my journey because I will always have to maintain. I will always have to keep up with my heart and making sure that things are okay. And that is my heart story. So what I say to you ladies is go to the doctor, get your numbers, know what they are, get your heart checked, because you know what? If you're not here, the family, you are the heart of the family. And if you're not here, things will not be the same with your family. You will leave a huge hole. Thank you so much for the time today.
Wow. Veronica, thank you so much for sharing this story. It hits home very close. and I appreciate you teaching us what we need to do to take care of us. We are not only to our heart, but we are the heart of the family. And we will be missed tremendously if we don't do that. So yeah, so I appreciate that. Particularly here at homes, I had also a very close family member with open heart surgery, and I personally saw the rehab, the cardiac rehab process. It takes 4 grueling months to get back to the very minimum. So I sincerely appreciate you sharing that and sharing your heart with us. I'm sure we have made a difference in more than one person today. And with that, I want to open the floor to questions and answers from all of us. I'm gonna turn over to Paula, and in the if you want to write your questions in the chat, and I will read the first one, and Paula, then we can lead the session later. I have a question from Brenda Rios in the chat. She says, as busy professionals, what would you suggest we can do to balance our health, work, and social life? I got to admit, I put my health as my last choice sometimes, and I feel guilty when I have to take time off to do an appointment with the doctor. So this is a great reminder.
I would say you need to put yourself first, because it's kind of like, think of yourself when you're in the airplane and you're traveling with children and they say, hey, put the mask on, the oxygen mask on yourself first, so that you can then put it on your children. Same thing, you know, you need to take care of yourself. I know I was that way too. I would always feel guilty, like I don't have time to go to the doctor. I would just barely go once a year for my annual physical. But I think you need to love yourself. You know, we wear red, and the American Heart Association is red, and the goer for women, you see the little red dress, but you need to love the woman inside the little red dress enough to take care of yourself, right? So that you can be here for your family. And just schedule it out. You know, we're all professional women. I think we're all pretty good at time management. We just need to put it on the calendar and get it scheduled.
Wonderful. Soledad, we have another kind of a question, maybe a comment also, is that Marilu is saying she lives by herself, right? And so she worries that something might happen to her when she's alone, or any suggestions as to maybe how she can work with that a little better?
I'll answer that real quickly. My mom lives alone and she's in her 80s. And so one of the things that I do and my sister does is that we call her in the morning to make sure she woke up, right? And then throughout the day, if she's out doing things, we taught her how to text. Hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Hey, I'm going here. Because she doesn't have internet, she doesn't have a computer, she doesn't know any of that, right? She doesn't know how to do any of that. But if we call and then we call her again, and one of us will call her in the evening, make sure that, okay, she's at home, she's safe. So we do that just not so much to keep tabs on her, but just to make sure that she's okay. And it seems to be working well. She's been alone for a few years. And so just making sure, and it gives us a level of comfort too, right? That we, at least we heard, one of us heard from her, and she's communicating with us throughout the day via text. So that might be something that she could do with a family member, is create kind of like a, think of it like a buddy system, kind of, where you kind of like just say, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think that's good. We have another one, which I love, right? What does your fitness routine look like?
I wish I could say I was like Larissa and always running and stuff, but I find myself working quite a bit. And so just right now, it's just walks, and especially during the pandemic, it was like getting more movement here in the house and then walking around my neighborhood. So I don't do a lot. I should do more, but again, I have my limitations because of my heart muscle that so when I get a little too overexerted, my heart will go crazy. So I have to like keep it easy. But walking, and I have a swimming pool, so I do swim in the back.
Yeah. So that's great to know. And obviously you have limitations, so certainly understand that. What about family history in heart health? And do we, how seriously do we take that? Do we make sure to tell our doctors? Is there a certain age that we might look at in this regards of, heart health?
family history has a lot to do with, because obviously genetics. And so when I was in the hospital, I started thinking like, why am I here? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't, my numbers had, my levels had always, when I went to the lab every year, that had always been normal. And my doctor said everything looks good, but I never asked the questions of what those labs were. And then I started asking questions about family history. And I wish people, especially in the Hispanic community, we don't really talk about like when somebody passes away, like what they died, they just say, oh, they just passed. Nobody really talks about it. But had I investigated more, now I know that on my father's side, my grandfather died of a heart attack. 3 uncles died of heart attacks at the age of 50 in their 50s. And then on my mother's side, and my grandmother, I never got to meet my paternal grandmother because she died of a stroke on the operating table before I was born. She actually passed in April and I was born in June. So I never got to meet her. And then on my mother's side, my grandfather had heart surgery in his 90s, and I had an uncle who had heart surgery in his 60s. So it was coming at me from both sides. And so it wasn't a matter of if it was going to happen, it was a matter of when was it going to happen. So family history is very important, because once like my children, once they knew that something happened to me, everybody had to go to the doctor, everybody had to get their heart checked so they could at least have what is their at this point in time, what is the current condition? And of course they check it every year since then. And the grandkids, they'll start to do that too once they, when they get a little older.
So very important, right? I think that's why the doctors ask you every time you go in, what is your history, right? Mother's side, father's side. So thank you for that. That's important. So I see Larissa put in here, we need 150 minutes of physical activity each week, moderate to vigorous levels, plant-based diet, which is extremely hard, but I know that it is very good for you. Just some personal information. My husband had a pretty severe heart attack about 6 years ago, and he went to a plant-based diet for, I want to say about 3 or 4 months after. He just went cold turkey. He said he felt the best he had ever felt. He could think clearer, he felt better. So we've kind of fallen off the wagon, but he said, I felt so much better with that. So thank you, Larissa, for that. So yeah, what kind of advice, right? Because we're stubborn, as you said earlier. Us women think we can do it all. We're super women, we've got things to do, like you had a client to deal with, you had work, you had a flight. Your story is just so touching and compelling that, I hope we listened and are not so stubborn. But what kind of other advice can you give us, right? If we're in denial that, yeah, it's not a heart attack. Yeah, I don't need to listen to this. I'll be better tomorrow. Can you give us, other than your compelling story, what kind of advice could you give to us about listening?
Until something happens too close to you, I think that's when we become more attuned. But for me, what made me switch was in those 3 days, I got to see everybody and to see the pain of my kids and my husband and my mom, my aunts, everybody that thinking that they were going to lose me, and to see that pain on their face, that was worse than what I had to go through, because they were crying. I could hear them crying because I was in intensive care, and so they would only let 1 or 2 people in for like 15 minutes every hour. So they were all out there, and the hospital told me like it was crazy. They said it was like a zoo, because I had everybody, tias, abuelas, children, grandchildren, all waiting for their 15 minutes, and then they would take turns. They would do like a lottery to see who was going to get to go in to see me. And so it was crazy. And then when they would come in, they were crying. I could hear them crying out there outside the room. And so it was just like that pain. If that doesn't compel you to take care of yourself, and then just think about, if something happens to you, what's left behind? Is your family prepared to be without you? Do you want them to go through that pain of having to live a life without you, of having maybe things unsaid or things undone? That should be compelling enough to figure it out, to get some time and make that a priority, make your own health a priority.
So never heard somebody respond that way. And I think that that's very gracious of you, because you're thinking of others before you think of yourself. But now knowing that you went through it, that you're going to take care of yourself is important, right? Because you said we have to take care of ourselves first. but I've never heard somebody talk about that, right? When you're laying there, how it's affecting others. And so I think that's important. I know your family is very happy that you're still here with us. And yeah, so anybody have any other questions that they want to ask? Feel free to unmute.
I did, Paula, I'm unmuted and I'm ready to ask.
Come on, Kate.
Veronica, I heard you say something that resonated with me. God bless you for what you went through and your amazing recovery. Good for you. But what resonated, one of the things that I heard you say, and I experienced this with my husband's situation when he passed away, was that you were in the midst of your health crisis. You were reviewing your will and your beneficiaries, and you had the stress of fixing all of those things in fear that your next operation might mean a bad outcome. So I would be interested to hear from you what you might have done differently months before that, even before you knew you were ill, so you didn't have a fire drill on your hands when you had a bad health situation. It's completely off topic, but it's not.
No.
Right?
Obviously, pre-planning is better, right? Because you're in the right state of mind, and as a result of that, everything is pre-planned out. I mean, we all learned from that experience. My mother, who's probably healthier than I am, you know, she's already laid out everything for me. She wrote it all out, where everything's at. What does she want? She even told me what music she wants at her funeral, what the color flowers she wants. I mean, just everything to the letter, right? And so making sure that you have a plan and that you're thinking ahead and trying to communicate with whoever you're going to entrust with your wishes, and making sure that everything is done ahead of time so that everything is the way you want it, and not that crazy fire drill that I went through, which caused more stress because, you know, I had to get permission for the attorney to come into the hospital, drop legal documents, have them come back, execute them, right, you know, and I actually signed them like a few hours before my surgery. It was crazy. And then we had to get them notarized, and we had to get them off to all the companies. And I wouldn't go into surgery until I received confirmation from each organization that they received and they had the most updated current information. And that's when I said, okay, I can go in now.
So what I'm hearing you say is, Carrie's making a comment. Paula, you can read it. I'm on an iPad, so I can't. But what I think I'm hearing you say is constantly update it. Do you recommend annually we look at these things?
I would say at a minimum, at least annually, unless you have some kind of health scare that maybe you need to review it at an earlier time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Carrie, you said something. Can you come on and just say it out loud yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I was just making the point that I am a certified financial planner and do help families with their estate plans as they need and other associated things. So everyone is welcome to reach out to me if you'd like to talk about it further. And in terms of kind of your overall estate plan, it ties very much so into your financial planning as well. And so there's lots of things to check up on. And if you do an annual review or an initial review to really get everything set up correctly, sometimes you don't have to look at it for several years unless there's a life event, but definitely on your financial side, quarterly or annually would be recommended.
So I'm going to also point out, as membership chair, being a member of this group gives you access to all sorts of people with amazing skills, backgrounds, and talents. This is an absolute perfect example of why it's so important to be with a group of women and to join TEW. Thank you for allowing the commercial.
Thank you. I think Diana also has a question. Diana, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. And Ms. Veronica, thank you for your boldness and your willingness to share your testimony. And it's people like you that give us the courage to be aware of what we're putting ourselves on a daily basis. And I think you had mentioned as well, we're just so preoccupied with just working, our family, and just trying to, maintain a healthy lifestyle when we don't realize that we're endangering our own selves. So thank you so much for sharing that and putting a spotlight on it. I've actually recently I have my daughter here, and I just recently started seeing a clinical nutritionist that she works with. And we were really going over my lab work. And one of the things that really stood out to her was, my cholesterol and my LDL. And she was just telling me, that we really need to work on that because that's definitely in the danger zone. And it really shook me to the core. And it also just gave me the excitement to be here today to listen to what you had to say in regards to our heart and the health of it and the importance of it. And I know one of the things that she was telling me, we're going to actively work together on, fixing that. But if I could just put in a little side note, that she had encouraged me to increase my seeds intake, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds to help with the heart. And I wanted to also introduce my daughter because she works actively with the clinical nutritionist, and they really look at, everyone's lab work, and her primary focus is just really trying to make sure that we live a very healthy life because we already are under so much stress as it is. Did you want to share anything?
Good morning. My name is Crystal. My mother invited me to just kind of join her on this little panel this morning. So thank you for having me. My own personal story as far as the cardiovascular area of the body. I'm 30 years old. I turned 30 last October. And I guess just being young and I wouldn't say I'm like completely sports oriented, but I feel like I live a relatively, healthy lifestyle. And it wasn't until I worked with the clinical nutritionist, but I didn't have a big role as being a patient of hers. And when I ran my labs, I was very surprised to see my triglycerides, my lipids, they're very high, they're in the danger zone. And I was like, well, I'm young, I shouldn't, I don't feel like I should be worried about these things. So it's a shock to me, essentially, that it was so bad. And I think it tends to go to the back of our minds that we don't realize, especially when things don't hurt us. We might feel a little off, might feel a little fatigued, but we're also living busy lives. We're just on the go. And we kind of just think, oh, well, I just need rest, or, oh, I just need to go and eat something really quick. And we don't take a step back to really, keep up with our appointments, keep up with, what's going on internally, and, just honoring our bodies with rest and the attention that it deserves. And then it's not until, something happens or something just really feels wrong that we take that time to try to see what's going on. The clinical nutritionist, she works to focus on a more like a natural healing process, with herbal supplements and whatnot. And, with my mom, just being in our Hispanic household, just caring for our parents. And so that was really important to me, especially because at some point I would like to give her grandchildren, and I would definitely love her to be around for that. And, just making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and helping her to do the same as I work on my own. I actually just saw a dietitian yesterday, and on my way over there, I was like, you could just make these healthy choices. You can just, what's right and what's not that great for you. You can just do it on your own. But I think sometimes, our mind will tell us, or try to talk us out of doing the things that we know we need, especially if it's a benefit for you. This happened to be available to me, not at a particular cost. So, just even taking advantage of that, knowing that it'll benefit me, just having that extra support, having that extra guidance, it's really helpful. It keeps you accountable. So definitely, thank you, Miss Veronica, for sharing your story, and all the women, on here, just, leading your lives as busy women, business women, moms, just every day. Don't think to put yourself first because you have all these things on your plate that you're worried about or, thinking about. But definitely, just honoring your body and putting that, learning to put that at the forefront as well is just as important, because like the example of the airplane, if you don't care for yourself, you're not going to be good to care for anyone else at the end of the day.
Thank you so much for sharing multiple generations. I love, Diana, that you brought your daughter, and thank you for joining the organization. She brings me a great point, Veronica. I have a question. You mentioned about the Latinas and the difference between Latinas. Are we genetically, is there anything specific that you have in your numbers or research that you share when you have a group of Latinas? Do we just not don't is our diet different? What have you seen in that environment?
So in general, Hispanic women tend to have more heart disease than other groups of women, just like African American women tend to have more strokes than heart disease. So just in general, if you're Hispanic, you have the propensity to have some form of heart disease. And so that's why it's very important to, again, get checked on an annual basis. Diana, were your numbers upside down when they gave you your cholesterol numbers? And what I mean by upside down, because mine were. So my total cholesterol was way below what should be. And normal total cholesterol should be less than 200. But what was weird is that my LDL, my lousy cholesterol, that number was significantly greater than the healthy one. And so the healthy one, your goal is to try to get it to 50 or above. That's the goal, right? Anything above 50 is great. The higher the number of the HDL, of the total composition of your total cholesterol, is best. But if it's upside down, so that means that your LDL, your lousy cholesterol, makes up the majority of the composition of your total cholesterol. If that's greater, then that puts you at risk for having a heart event. And so it's really important that your numbers are not upside down. So the lousy one, the only way you can make that smaller is obviously, what we eat has an impact, making sure that we don't eat a lot of the fatty foods and stuff. And so going plant-based, that will help you. But the healthy one, what nobody tells you is that the only way to increase that number, it's not by taking any medicine, it's not by what you eat, it's by your physical activity. So the more physical activity that you do, that's the only way you increase that number. And so again, like that, being well, making sure that you're eating well is going to take the bad one down. But then doing physical activity will help you increase the healthy one, the HDL.
Yeah, so I am looking at my numbers now, and the LDL, it's definitely extremely high. It even has a H next to it in red, where it shows that it's extremely high, and the HDL, it shows to be a little over the normal range.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I have a follow-up question to that. So we talk about the numbers, I love numbers. What are, the blood work paper has 3 pages of numbers, and obviously, basically, I can read the ranges and, the first page. And what are the key numbers that we have to pay attention, or even inquire, or even ask our doctors to include in our blood work?
Well, obviously, basically, you want to know what your blood pressure numbers are. You want to make sure that you're at 120 over 80 or better, so less than 120 over 80. When you're looking at your total cholesterol, you want to make sure that you're less than 200. And again, look at the breakout. Ask them to show you the triglyceride numbers, the HDL and the LDL. Your triglycerides, the total composition for your cholesterol is 1/5 of the total triglyceride number, plus the HDL and the LDL. So that's how they get to that total cholesterol number. And then you want to check your blood glucose, for diabetes. You want to make sure that that's less than 9%. You never want to go above that, So again, trying to maintain. We're only supposed to eat 1 teaspoon of sugar a day. That's it. And that sounds, yeah, that's all our body needs is just 1 teaspoon. So you have to really prorate and kind of watch what you're eating. If you drink a soda water, guess what? You're drinking half of that is sugar. Half a can of soda water is sugar. And so you've had enough sugar to last you for the month by drinking 1 soda water.
Ice cream doesn't count, right?
Not if you take a piece of frozen fruit and run it through and make your own in the blender. That would be good. But if it's processed and it probably has some sugar in it, not natural sugar, but processed sugar. And so it's really important, what we do. as we get older, we need to know what our vitamin D levels are, right? We need to make sure what that is, and we want to make sure about our bone density as we get older, making sure we have good bone density. And if we have a propensity to have heart disease or strokes in our family, then we need to ask for some more extensive tests, maybe getting an EKG done to make sure that our heart is okay. As we get older, if you have a high incidence of strokes, go see a neurologist to get checked to make sure that your neurological function is okay.
And once we realize that the blood pressure is high, what are the maybe two or three top things that we can do to help that?
So there's several things that we have, that you can do. One, obviously, what you eat can influence your blood pressure. So trying to look for low sodium options or no salt options is great. We always say good, better, best. Try to eat fresh as much as possible. Frozen would be a next best thing, and then of course anything canned or processed, would be the last option, because it's going to probably have a higher incidence of sodium, and sodium is going to directly impact your blood pressure. Caffeine can affect your blood pressure, so never drink a cup of coffee, a sports drink, or a glass of iced tea and then go to the doctor to get checked, because it's going to artificially inflate your numbers for 2 hours. So before going to the doctor, no caffeine, because then you're going to have an inaccurate reading. That doctor is going to make a decision based on that inaccurate reading, and perhaps you go on medication when you don't need to go on medication. Physical activity will keep your numbers in line. Again, if you're a smoker, try to stop or reduce the smoking. If you're drinking a lot of alcohol can also affect us. So trying to limit the amount of alcohol can also help you.
Veronica, I know this is a strange question and you may not have the answer because you're not a doctor, but you always hear, a glass of red wine a day keeps the doctor away. An apple too, but but is that true, or is that just a myth we all want to believe?
No, there's actually tannins inside the red wine, and so the tannins are what help you. It has resveratrol, and that's what helps the heart. So a glass of red, a hearty red wine, it's good. Just don't drink the whole bottle.
Ms. Veronica, I have a quick question. In affiliation with the Heart Association, do they offer any type of educational classes, either virtual or in person, to the public?
So we have, on a regular basis, I would say no, but there are opportunities. So we have what we call our Empowered to Serve health lessons. And right now we're executing those at various YMCAs around the city with a range of topics. And it's everything from, how do you improve your blood pressure? How do you identify when you're having a heart attack? What is diabetes? How to perform CPR? There's a wide range of topics that we educate on. Sometimes through our national office, we'll offer those online on Facebook on a national level. And so you'll see it advertised on Facebook. Sometimes you'll see it advertised on LinkedIn. And that's from our national team when they do those larger pushes to educate, a broader audience. But we do have some health lessons that we can share, that we do share.
Awesome, thank you.
Have you learned about what's the influence of the e-cigarette? I have seen a lot of people now smoking electronic cigarettes, especially younger generation. And I had probably a personal question, a conversation with one of my daughters of my cousin, and they think it's nothing. And I think it's something. And what is there any comment to that? Do you know anything about it?
Well, the American Heart Association has taken a very strong stand against vaping and e-cigarettes, because the concept or the what people think, the perception, right, is that it's a little bit safer and healthier than having a traditional cigarette, but actually the nicotine levels are higher because they're more concentrated. And so the American Heart Association had a very strong campaign a few years ago, right before the pandemic, that was called Quit Lying, to bring awareness. And right now we're actually working with school districts, regarding education on vaping, because what happens a lot of times is that in schools, sometimes when children or the kids are caught vaping, they are given very extensive punishments. And what we're trying to say is don't have the extensive punishment, but rather educate them on why it's bad, and giving them alternate solutions at the school district level. I know that Emily Gordon and Larissa have worked heavily in that space, so I don't know if they want to add any additional commentary to the vaping.
I was just going to say, I think everything that you said is correct, Veronica, and what you see is not what you get. So, I think public perception is pliable. And so I think, I was one of those people that when I saw the e-cigarettes come out, I said, oh, wow, this looks great. This is a great tool to get off of tobacco. Wow, this is like amazing. It's amazing what technology does. And, little did I know, and did many of us know, that there are 16-year-olds that have had double lung transplants because they ruined their lungs through vaping. So that's I was going to say it's an extreme example. It's actually not. There are quite a few teens that have pretty much lost their chance at a longer life from vaping. And so, when you consider that you can get into one of these convenience stores and just buy it for very little money, and that they're constantly disrupting, quote unquote, not in a good way, disrupting the technology and coming up with cheaper, faster methods, it mirrors what we've gone through with calories. Calories are cheaper and faster to acquire and easier to acquire than ever before. So, when you think about the impact on our health for being able to acquire things that essentially are it's not an exaggeration to say they're potentially deadly. Where does that leave us? There's room for policy to make these things less available. There's room for public education and health education to help the consumer to understand, how harmful these things are, not just tobacco, but fast foods, things like that. So we've got our work cut out for us. That's all I'll say. Emily Gordon, anything else?
Yeah, I would just echo both Veronica and Larissa. The scariest thing, and we've developed laws to combat this, is that teenagers were being unfairly targeted, and they're still being targeted when it comes to vaping. We see flavors such as Fruit Loops and cotton candy. That's not to meet the palate of an adult. That's to target a child. And that switch where big tobacco in the 90s, early 2000s, were really trying to market towards teenagers in high school and really encourage them to start smoking. And then we had all the messaging and it went down. And for the first time, we're beginning to see rates go up because of vaping. But with the work of the American Heart Association and the American Lung Association doing a lot of different work to partner and combat those rising rates and ensure that people have the education that vaping isn't a safe alternative because of just how strong the vape liquid can be. And it is still a carcinogen.
Perfect. Thank you. One final question. If anyone wants to, this has been absolutely incredible from our angles. I would love to give an opportunity if there anybody has a final question, unmute yourself, and Veronica, after that, maybe you give us our closing notes, and then we will turn over to Bridget. Last chance. Any questions? If not, I do have one from Larissa. You talk about plant-based diet. Is there any 2 or 3 things that you can tell us outside of what we know, kind of generally know, that you can share with all of us, kind of the 2 highlights of the highlights of the difference in the body when you change from to plant-based?
Yes, happy to. And I agree with, I think it was Paula that said, it's not easy. I will tell you only the facts. So I will not proselytize. I promise I will not try to convert you all to my way, because my way is a little crazy. I will say that the top cardiologists at the various health systems, including Memorial Hermann, that have, come out and lectured and spoken with some of our audiences through the American Heart Association would tell you this is, when you look at longitudinal evidence, this is the only evidence-based way that we have to really address through diet address cardiovascular disease. And that's not to say that other approaches don't work. I personally, and I'll put my personal individual hat on, this is not the AHA speaking, but I'm not a huge fan of keto. But if you're doing it and it works, then, you know, more power to you. They don't have data longitudinally on keto diets. They don't have it yet. I'm sure somebody out there is studying it. So I would just say there seems to be some connection, and you all, you know, can read up and Google this, but seems to be some connection with blood viscosity and plant-based. I was talking with Veronica about it the other day. And again, I just want to be really careful to say that these are just, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm certainly not a doctor. These are just things that I have read in the news. So do your own research. There are plenty of American Heart Association wonderful articles in circulation, and those are really the places where I would recommend that everyone seek their information, just because I wouldn't want to give out wrong information. I can tell you, again, wearing my individual Larissa hat, that personally my blood pressure did go up when I turned 52. For probably a number of reasons, who knows? My weight went up too, so that's, you know, the joy and the beauty of menopause. But hormonal changes do impact us, and you know, I think when you look at some of the work the American Heart Association does with clinics, they will catch in the clinic when a woman's or a person's blood pressure goes up. I caught mine first and said, this is a pattern. It's a bothersome pattern. And so I've always been very quick to address things that seem to be going astray. So I just went back to my vegetarian ways and I cut out the dairy, and my blood pressure is completely normal, if not exceedingly healthy now. So I'm super proud of that because it was hard, and it required a lot of dedication and personal discipline. Tracking your food is an evidence-based strategy through the National CDC Diabetes Prevention Program. Writing your food down is something that Weight Watchers does. So there are many, many things that you can do to just be more aware. But, you know, I think it's just interesting to see how much information is out there on plant-based diets, and it's a personal choice. I wouldn't tell you all it's going to work for you. You know, from what I'm reading, I think it's an excellent evidence-based choice. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's you should not offer me the soapbox. I will embrace it.
Thank you.
Don't go on a walking meeting with me, because you will not want to meet with me again. I'm kidding. I did move some of my meetings to walking meetings, and some of our partners really enjoy it. We meet at the park and we walk for an hour and get a lot of business done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bridget?
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's. This session was power. This session was outstanding. And I want to thank our speakers, and I'll just thank the American Heart Association, Larissa. Great information. I know who to contact about plant-based information. I know that's you, right? And to Emily, thank you so much. And to our phenomenal speaker, Veronica Sanchez, you were just amazing, absolutely amazing. I think that we need to take this on the road. I can be your manager, and you need to speak all over the world with that story. You know, the story was so powerful. It reminded me of when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. I thought I was in the best shape of my life. I had a trainer, and I was at work, and I was steady trying to go. And the guy came over and he said, "Miss Bridget, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he said, "Well, you don't look fine." I said, "Well, just let me sit down for a second." And so I got back up after a few minutes, and I said, "Oh, I'm good. Let's go. And then I started feeling dizzy again. He said, "Miss Bridget, you sure you're okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "Well, let's just go to the nurse station." I said, "No, I'm good. Let's just keep going." And finally, I almost fell out. I got dizzy, and I got dizzy. He said, "Okay, let's just walk with me to the station, to the nurse's station." So we went over there, and the nurse took my blood pressure, and it was so high that she told me, she said, "Well, Miss Bridget, you are in stroke mode." And I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "Yeah, you're about to have a stroke if you don't slow down." And I said, "I got so much stuff to do. I don't have time for this. Just give me whatever aspirin," because I was told if you take a bare aspirin, it would take it all away. But I know that my family has a history of high blood pressure and stuff. So when you talked about your story, it reminded me of me. And then I remember going to the doctor and he said, you know, you need to get on high blood pressure pills. I said, I'm not old. I'm 40 years old. I would not be taking a pill every day. I'm not going to be, you're not going to make me be old today. No. And so he said, well, if you don't take it, he said, Miss Bridget, you're not going to make it. And I said, oh yeah. I said, I'll be fine. I eat good. I exercise. He says, no, it's hereditary. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took the pills, but I wouldn't take the pills. And then my blood pressure went up one day. And so my husband called him. He said, she's being hard-headed again. She would not take the pills. And so he got on the phone and he told me, he said, well, I can tell you like this so you can understand it. You're so beautiful, but if you don't take these pills, you can have a twisted mouth. I said, I'll take the pill. I'll be taking that pill. I'll start right now. So everybody has a story, but when you told yours, it reminded me of mine and how something that somebody said resonated with me in a way that I would receive it so that I would do what I needed to do. But I found this quote that reminded me of you, Veronica, because I'm going to be your number one fan now. And it says, a strong woman loves, forgives, walks away, lets go, tries again, and perseveres, no matter what life throws at her. But a queen will always turn pain to power. And that's what you've done for me, and I'm sure for everyone on this call. I am honored to know you. I'm thankful that I invested in myself to be here today to listen to you. I'm going to be advocating for you all over and telling your story. I can't tell it as well as you, but I do work for Memorial Hermann, and they always do something on heart health. I will be advocating for you to come and speak for Memorial Hermann. You had me almost in tears, telling me about why you needed to go on and why you needed to fight for your family. So I just want to say thank you to you for putting a fire back in my heart about heart health. Really meant a lot. And thank you to Soledad for bringing you to us today. You know, God put you in a place, and you're in a place for a reason at a time. And today you were it. And I want to just say thank you for a job well done. So thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to Soledad right now.
This was a powerful morning. I needed this too. I shared with Bridget that my blood pressure was high this week, so I went to the doctor, and I needed to hear all of this today. So I hope that this information goes to your heart, to your brain, and you see the power of taking care of ourselves and the power of belonging in a group of amazing women. Veronica, wow, amazing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for aligning us. And thank you, each one of you, to take time in your very busy schedule to take care of you. We need you for the long, all of you for many years to come. And thank you one more time, the American Heart Association team, amazing work. And we will do this again next year in person. And I'm looking forward to eating the healthy snacks. And I hope we have a long partnership in the years to come. I invite each one of you to check our website, and I'm personally inviting each one of you for July 27. Write it down right now, put it in your calendar at 11:30 a.m. We will have our own amazing Carrie Potter talking about personal financial fitness. So it's important to have our body fit, also our finance fit, and well, because there is there are many queens in this call, and we need the queens to keep doing what we're doing. It's 10 a.m. Sharp, and I want to close the meeting saying thank you and take care of all of you. I appreciate it. Kathy wants to say something before.
Yes, if you're not a member of TEW and you think you might find value of being part of our group and network, we'd really love to have you join. You're welcome to contact me personally, and I'm going to put that in the chat real quickly. Can someone do that for me? I'm on iPad. I just put my contact information real quickly and reach out, talk to me. And I'm happy to talk to you about membership. I have to throw that out there, Soledad.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Take care of yourself. We love you. Okay. Bye-bye.